As the police sirens started to approach the store, I took off running the other direction. Unfortunately, it meant I had to make a big circle around, as my house was in the direction that the sirens were coming from. But making sure that I didn't get caught up with dealing with the cops was definitely important. I didn't have time to reforge my armor or put the rest of my things back in their original state. So I did my best and simply made something of a backpack that I could carry the metal as, and eventually made my way back to the house. And just like that, my first foray as a superhero has come to a close. Honestly, I was a bit intimidated by the idea of having to fight, but I was surprised at how easy it felt. I mean, I was holding back, and it still felt like child's play. Taking out those thugs was so easy that, quite frankly, it gave me a bit of an ego boost. Yeah, I think these superpowers things are working out nicely, I said as I entered my house. I had begun getting used to removing all my liquid metal and my mask and things of that sort as I neared my house. I didn't want people recognizing that the figure out doing heroic things was traveling back to my general location. So I started removing all of my things before I got there. And finally, once at my house, I set my liquid metal down on the table, crashed on the sofa, and breathed a deep sigh of relief. Wow, that was intense, I thought to myself, as I removed my liquid metal armor. I had already broken down my mask, so I couldn't see the effect of bullets on it. But after taking off my body armor and taking a solid look at it, it didn't look like it was affected at all. There weren't even dents in it. I mean, sure, I felt the impacts of the bullets, but it didn't damage the armor at all. Normal metal tends to warp and bend when it gets an impact like that, but apparently the liquid metal doesn't, I thought to myself as I looked at it. You'll find that the power of the king is not so easily broken, I heard Nylea's voice interject. That went quite well. I still could think you used some work. That you could use some work. Remember, currently you're relying on your 10 times amplification of physical strength and the boost to your agility and perception to outclass the people you're fighting. But remember, you won't be able to rely on that once you're fighting somebody who has a symbiote like you. In fact, it's highly probable that you'll come in contact with those who have superior strength and speed. Remember, learning how to perform alterations to physical form in order to give greater advantage is a long and time-consuming process that takes generations to perfect for us symbiotes. The royal family has spent its time creating the king's power, the fluid that you manipulate and control, and making it exceptionally versatile and useful. However, that's also prevented us from being able to give greater effort to physical enhancement. Meaning, as far as you're physically concerned, my abilities to increase those factors are no different from the average symbiote. Not to mention that there is what you might call a limitation to symbiotes. There is only so much genetic information that we are able to maintain, and thus the amount of abilities that we can maintain are also limited. And almost all of my genetic memory and that of the royal family is taken up with the power of the king. There's not much room else for any other kind of advancement, not without weakening the power of the king, as the complexity to create the substance is beyond reason. So, once you're in a fight with another symbiote, relying on those advantages of increased physical strength and ability won't work. So, that means you have to get better at manipulating the liquid metal. And you should probably also start some physical training beef up a bit. As I said, you are a bit scrawny. Every little bit helps, especially under 10 times amplification. It might also be practical for you to begin some sort of training in martial arts. If you have those here, I'm unaware. On my homeworld, there were a various number of martial arts, specific styles of combat, honed over generations. Much like we symbiotes create our abilities over generations, we found that our living hosts, their races also over generations form these martial arts. But I'm unaware as if humans have them. Yeah, actually we do, Nalea, I replied. In fact, we have a bunch of them. Honestly, even if I was to try to learn one, I really wouldn't know where to start. Yes, I suppose if there are that many, it might be a hard choice. And this superhero business that you seem to be partaking in, it is to hide the fact that you actually are the person who has special abilities, which makes things more difficult, I suppose. On my world, there was nothing wrong with having a symbiote. It was actually quite an honor. So even if you were much stronger than others, you could still go train in a martial art without much problem or issue. But you humans, with this superhero nonsense, the need for absolute secrecy, causes quite a problem. You need to be trained in combat, and yet if you were to go train in combat, it would rapidly become obvious that you were faster and stronger than any regular human, thus endangering this secret identity. And the entire thing just seems overcomplicated. But I've begun to notice a large amount of things that are overcomplicated when it comes to human beings. There are very many different things about you than our original partner race. Well, thank you for that glowing endorsement of humanity, Nalea, I responded somewhat sarcastically. But you're also forgetting the problem with physical exercise. Being able to work out and get stronger is all well and good when you're normal strength. But if I go to a gym and start benching what I'm actually capable of benching in order to increase my physical strength overall, then once again we fall into the same problem of people are gonna notice that a scrawny little metalhead can bench press over 600 pounds. Yeah, that's gonna turn some heads. The only reasonable solution is to get exercise equipment myself, which requires buying it. Currently, I'm hoping that the payments that I get from showing up on these talk shows will be able to cover the things I need, but it's all just getting so expensive. And to boot, I don't even have a car, which makes it hell to get around, I said as I slowly took off the rest of my armor plating. And then again, I'm still running into the issue of how to carry around more liquid steel, how to travel with it without it being cumbersome. At this point, I think I might have to call the think tank in. The think tank? Nylea said, curious about what I meant. Well, Nylea, me, Vicky, and Ned, sometimes we get around and play a game of sorts. We call it Think Tank. It's like a game where we randomly select problems, and then we go around, passing ideas back and forth, trying to see who can come up with the best solution to the problem. And then we take a vote on it, and the winner gets to collect the money we betted, claiming the crown of King of the Think Tank. It's actually a fairly fun little game. So I suppose what's in order is that I call the think tank together. At least I'll be able to tell Vicky what's really going on. But I'll probably have to keep Ned in the dark, which is also troublesome because the less he knows, the less effective his opinion will be. But then again, knowing Ned, there's no telling how he'll react to the fact that I have superpowers and have started heroing.